All righty. Hello, everyone. We are so excited that you are here. I am with Deb Brown-Marr, and we're going to be talking about Sell Like Jesus. Woohoo! Welcome, Deb.
Thank you, Kris. It's really good to be here with you today.
Great. And I'm just going to mute everybody so that as we're recording, that the recording has basically you and I, and then we'll open it up for questions after that.
Sounds good.
All right, so we are recording. My name is Kris Castro, and I am a coach. I help women leaders who are married to their family, married to their work. They are passionate about both, and they are usually seeking to experience results, relief, and restoration as they manage it all through Him. And we have Deb Marr today. Woohoo! So Deb, why don't you take a second, introduce yourself, and then we're going to get right into the interview.
Sure. So I have been a sales coach, trainer, and now author. Most of my career has been in sales or customer service. It was actually December 19th last year that the book hit Amazon for the first time. So I'm thrilled to be here to just shed a little bit of light on the subject of why I dared to put Jesus and sales in the same sentence.
Hey.
And so that's what we're going to be talking about today. All righty. So if we could just have everybody mute, that would be awesome. All right. So, Deb, my first question for you is, what was the catalyst that prompted you to write the book?
It was 2012. I was a member of Convene Now, which is a biblically based mastermind group of business owners. And I was in a meeting with my coach, Bud Handwork. And Bud looked at me and said, "You know, Deb, you know so much about sales, you really ought to write a book." And immediately I said, I don't know what I would write about, unless it would be how to sell like Jesus. And the words came out of my mouth and I went, oh my goodness. It was in there. I had never verbalized it. And as soon as I said it, I knew I had to do it. Now, I mentioned that was 2012, and it took me until 2019 to get it on the market. So short story is there was a lot of opposition. I had to learn a lot. I never considered myself to be a writer. I'm very comfortable speaking, very comfortable teaching, and doing interactive workshops, not memorized, not soliloquies, but facilitated sessions. So I can think quickly on my feet, and I love the input from the group because it presses me to describe what I'm teaching from the perspective of the hearer, not just my perspective. So for all those reasons, I really never thought of myself as a writer. So I had to overcome that self-imposed limitation. And over the years, I started writing immediately and was challenged to figure out, how do I write a sales book that no one else has ever done before? And how do I weave Christ and the scriptures that I live by into that sales process in a way that doesn't beat people over the head with Jesus? So I spent a lot of time working through those challenges, as well as some personal things that happened. And 2019, January, I said to the Lord, this is the year, it will be done. And I spent the rest of the year working on it and was just so grateful that we actually got it up for sale on December 19th, 2019.
Happy anniversary 2 days
Thank
early.
You. Thank you.
So I love the book, and I pretty much read it over the course of like 2 or 3 days. I was done with it. It was awesome. And what I want to do is ask you a bunch of questions based on what I read. And I'd love for you to give everybody that's here some strategies and tips and whatever tricks you want to give them. Okay. So my next question to you is, throughout the book, the theme seems to be highly others focused rather than sales focused. Why is that?
Putting others first is one of the tenets of Christianity, esteeming others greater than yourself. And the Bible story that stood out to me was the one about the wedding, where Jesus says, don't take the seat at the head table because someone more important than you might show up, and then the host would have to tell you to go to the back of the room. Instead, take the seat in the back of the room, and then the host has the opportunity to elevate you when it's appropriate. So in sales, there's a dynamic line that we have to walk between giving and collecting a paycheck, right? You can't give away your products and services. You need to make money. So there's a tension there, and it's really critical to understand how you can put other people first by listening with the intent of understanding, not with the intent of selling them what you have, not with the intent of trying to convince them that you have a good thing and that they should want it because it is a good thing. And after all, I can see how it could really help you, so you're going to buy it, right? We don't mean to do that, but it's been done to us so many times. And quite literally, we are excited about our own products and services. We do believe in them. So we have to contain that excitement and see it from the other person's perspective. So yeah, there are all sorts of things that we can do to walk that line while still putting others first.
And just so everybody knows, Deb does not know what I'm going to ask her. Like, I seriously decided not to tell her so that they would all be good impromptu answers.
I appreciate that. I love the challenge.
Well, as a good salesperson, you have to think on your feet, right?
So true. It's critical. You never know what's going to come at you, so you got to be ready.
Okay, so next question. I really love the quote on page 5. And here's the quote. The very definition of sales, the fair exchange of goods or services in return for an agreed upon compensation, implies a win-win for both parties. Each gives and receives according to mutual agreement. Yeah. How does that quote redeem the sales industry?
Using that definition, it's the definition of win-win. You know, we've all heard that expression. Everything has to be a win-win. And I struggled with even using that expression because it can be discounted. It's used so much. The truth is that when I help you, the buyer, discover for yourself what it is that you need, truly need, what the real problem is that you're trying to solve. And I realize that my solution fits to meet that need. Then I'm able to say what it is that I have to offer, and they can choose to buy in or not. So it's that discovery process, truly understanding what someone needs, even beyond what they start by articulating. Because I might need a television set because mine is broken. But okay, why do I really need it? What does the television set serve? How are we using it? Well, we're using it to watch training videos from preachers that we follow. And it's our study time, and it's the fellowship time that my husband and I spent together. If you didn't ask me the question, you would never know any of that about me. And you would only have what is in your head to go on to offer. After you hear how I'm using it, you know the technology of the products that you have, the suite that you could offer. Now you're in a position to offer the TV set that works the best for my specific needs. And it isn't just the size of the screen. It isn't just HD. It's the family environment that it creates, the way we're using it. Do you follow me?
Mm-hmm.
So when I might end up spending a whole lot more money than I initially thought, because the product that is offered to me meets the need that I stated, but I wouldn't state it unless it was uncovered by the salesperson.
Mm-hmm.
So salesperson helps me figure out what's best for me, then I am much more willing to pay the price and see the value, because value is in the eye of the beholder.
Mm-hmm.
So if I look at the story of the wages, the story where the owner of a field, 9 o'clock in the morning, hired a bunch of people, said, I'll pay you 1 denarius. They said, great. Another group came at noon. He hired them and said he'd pay them 1 denarius. Hired some at 4 o'clock. They finished at 5. Everybody got 1 denarius. People that came at 9 were grousing over the ones that came at 4 because they got the same amount. How can that be fair? And the owner said, didn't you agree to the wage? Right? It's an agreed upon compensation. So there's another whole lesson in that story, but we won't go there.
And for me, you know, the stereotypical salesperson, that slimy, want to get one over me. It's really only about them, that they're just pretending it's about me.
Right.
You know, I think your book and what I've learned a lot about authentically selling really shifts that whole perspective and redeems the industry. It redeems the sales process. Mm-hmm. Because when you come to the table with authenticity and you come to the table with Jesus's mindset, it's always about the other person and the best for the other person and what they need. Right. And if you don't make a penny, that's okay, because Jesus is going to take care of you, you know? So it's that whole thing as well.
Yes, it is. Yes. And if I don't make the sale, it's not because they're bad people. It's not because I failed. It's because we didn't have that mutual connection, that mutual agreement, where the buyer sees value for the money that's being asked. And let me tell you another reason I put that definition in the book, because I'd love to reach nonprofits and ministries who have to do what? Fundraising. They don't want to call it sales, but even my pastor understands that fundraising is about finding mutual agreement, mutual benefit. So And how about parents? Anybody have children? Think about how many times during the day you have to try to get your children, forget about children, spouse, significant other, brothers and sisters, colleagues, cohorts. How many times do we have to help someone see things from our point of view? Now, again, others first. If I first say, tell me your point of view, help me understand where you're coming from, then I've gained receptivity. And I also know that person's frame of reference. So now I can shape what I say, and I may actually change what I end up saying because what I initially thought is no longer relevant because I was thinking in a vacuum. Once I receive data from the other person, now I'm in a much better place to respond appropriately, accurately, more helpfully.
Yep, and that's a good sales strategy in general.
Absolutely.
So your book says, it mentions 7 characteristics of Christ as a foundation for ethical sales. Mm-hmm. How did you choose those 7 and why are they important?
Choosing those 7 is what it was the key to unlocking being able to write the book. So I had written all sorts of things, but I didn't know how to organize them in a way that made sense. And so I was blessed to get connected. I had joined the John Maxwell team a couple years ago and went through their whole coaching course and earned the right to have a peer coach. So I was assigned someone in an office at the Maxwell organization in Florida said, okay, let's see. Let's put Denise and Deb together. All right, here we go. So never met her. Our first call, I said, Denise, I promised the Lord I was going to write this book. It's now April. Okay. I'm going to write this book this year, but I don't have my outline. And she said with her beautiful little Southern accent, well, Deb, let's just do it now. She asked me 3 or 4 direct questions. And out of those questions, the answers were these characteristics. So that's how they got born. And they map directly to things that we need to talk about in sales. So Jesus didn't sell salvation. He gave his life. But what I point out in the book is there's a cost that every believer has to pay. That cost is giving up of yourself and selfish ways and selfish desires and wanting to do things my way. Because let me tell you, my Christian walk, it took me till I was almost 40 before I realized my way. Yeah, it wasn't working. It wasn't working in a big way. And that's when I really got sold out for the Lord. And that's when my business started turning around because I finally went all in for Christ and all into the calling to be in sales, which I struggled with for years. It's another reason I wrote the book. I didn't want to be accused of being that slime ball sales guy any more than anybody else does. So I had to find a way to sell and be good at sales, earn a living at it, that I could look at myself in the mirror and be pleased. And more than that, know that the Lord was pleased with me. So I was mapping Christ's behaviors to what we can do, our behaviors, as we sell products and services.
Mm-hmm. Well, and that brings me to my next good question, which is that I really love the strategy that you mentioned about acknowledging, affirming, then shifting to direction with a question. Can you really tell the audience about that and kind of show them an example?
Mm-hmm. Yes. Everybody knows that in sales, you have to be good at asking questions and listening. So questioning, have you heard the expression, an inch deep and a mile wide? No substance. If you come in with your mechanical questions, I'm going to call them. So these are the questions that occur in any industry where you have to gather preferences, data, details. It's easy to look at the construction industry, how large, what materials, what color, so those are what I label mechanical kinds of questions. It's the how big, how wide, when. And you need the answers to those questions. But the problem is people ask them up front before they've even qualified the person to buy their goods. So what do they have to qualify? 3 things: pain, budget, and decision. In that order. And if they don't have pain, you stop. There's no point. If they don't have budget, you stop. If they can't make a decision, you stop, right? Why beat your head against a wall? So pain, problem. People either have a problem that they want to solve, a goal that they're trying to reach, or a fear they're trying to eliminate. Until you know what that is, you really don't know if you have a good solution for them or not. So if I ask someone, we'll just put it in the sales coaching realm, why would you even consider sales coaching? What would drive you to want to invest money to get sales coaching? That's my first question. Now I'm going to listen to the answer. And I want people to know that I heard them. So I will acknowledge with some kind of verbal or physical expression, right? So it might sound like, oh, that's interesting. Tell me more. So I acknowledge, and then I ask another question that's going to take me a little bit deeper, not wider, but deeper. And as they share, I'm listening for key words in their story, in their answer. And I'm picking up on those key words, acknowledging and asking my next question about those key words. And that again will take you deeper and deeper until you get to the real reason, the root cause, the place that really hurts. So I was in a group that was doing an exercise. You might be familiar with the 5 whys. Has anybody ever experienced that? So the 5 whys, it's along the same lines of what I just explained. The problem is every time you say why, what happens what do you feel when somebody just says the word why? No matter how nicely they say it, why? And now I'm going to ask you a 3rd time, why? And now you want to hit me because I'm asking why. So acknowledge, restate, and then ask a question gets rid of that antagonism that comes with the Socratic method. Socratic method is question, 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 versus, wow, okay, I really appreciate you sharing that with me. Based on what you just said, and now I'm going to ask another question. It's the empathy of the active listening skills that makes all the difference. And that's how you can get people to tell you things they haven't told anyone else. because if they're talking to you because they have a need, they really want a solution. Most people who will engage with you in a conversation really want a solution. And if you can hang in there and help them discover, help them articulate what the real reason is behind it, then you immediately, the person feels that they can trust you. And they usually buy, because it's so hard to find a salesperson who will take the time and pay attention in the way that's needed to get to that place.
So later in the book, you mention and stress the importance of 4 key points to building relationships. Tell us a little bit about that.
So I'm going to be honest and say I forget what those 4 key points are. If you could point them out to me, that would be great.
Well, if I had put down a page number, I would have done that. So we're both at a loss. See the authentic and transparency you have here for 2 women who love Jesus. We can just be real.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, we'll move on while I look for those points. My next question is,
yes.
Share more about the discipline of observation that you mentioned, because you say it's a great strategy to tailor sales conversations to each person. And I think you talked a little bit about that earlier when you were discussing about reshaping how your presentation or your conversation based on what you hear and what you see. And so I know that great salespeople are very observant.
Yes. We need to listen with the intent of understanding. So let me unpack that.
Sure.
Listening is not just hearing something with your ears. It's listening with your heart, your mind, your spirit, and your ears. So sometimes it's listening for what someone didn't say. And it's very hard to give an example of that, but you know it when you see it, because you'll ask a question, someone will give you an answer, and it's like, they didn't mention such and such. And it strikes you, right? So we need to be listening with our eyes as well. So that's where the observation comes in. If I can make eye contact, I can watch your facial expressions. I can watch your body language. I need to listen to your tone. I need to listen for changes in your tone, modulations, gaps, pauses, and be comfortable with silence, because when you're asking people questions, they don't always have a quick, ready answer that they can pull out. In fact, I love the silence because it means gears are turning. They're processing. And that's what I want them to do. I want them to think about things they've never thought about in quite that way. So observing is woven into the eye gate. It's also the ear gate. And then it's not being afraid to call out what you sense. There are times that I will use the universal timeout sign and say, I get the feeling that you're uncomfortable with, or I get the sense there's something that happened, but you're not at liberty to say it. Am I on the right track? And sometimes just saying that, the person breaks down and says, oh yeah, this just happened. And I can tell they're distracted, but if I ignore it, then there's no connection there. And if I pretend there is still a connection when in fact there's something going on in them, I've lost the connection. I've lost the ability to influence. So we're much better off taking the risk, being a little bit brave and saying, I could be wrong. And this is how I couch it, just in case. I could be wrong. I'm sensing, I'm feeling, I'm seeing, whatever language is your authentic language.
And there's so much power in silence. One of the things they teach you in coach school, like when you get your coach certification, is that the silence is where things happen. Because if you are silent as a coach, you are forcing the person you're speaking with to either think about what's going on, or you're giving them the freedom to process what they're already thinking about in such a way that they can gain clarity and breakthrough.
Exactly.
So there, and by filling up the space, you're actually interfering with the conversation a lot of times.
Yeah, well put. It's true. It breaks the communication, and you'll stop wherever you were in that funnel. You'll stop short of really hearing what you need to hear. And it's not because you need to hear it, it's because they need to say it. Because sometimes when you get to that place, it becomes obvious, I'm not the best person for you. I just had this happen. Someone from the Thrive group that Bob Wilbanks runs out in Minnesota called me up and said, I saw your book Sell Like Jesus. I'd love to have you come and speak to our group. So I said, this was done by email, interestingly. We didn't have the, verbal dialogue. I wrote back to him, thanked him, and I answered a question because he was talking about evangelism versus sales, and he was wondering if I was talking about Jesus, the evangelist, and how to be an evangelist in business. And so I simply asked, is it this or that question? Are you looking at helping business people sell from a godly perspective? Or are you looking at helping business people evangelize their coworkers? Two very different things. And he said the latter, evangelize coworkers. Well, could I speak on that? Sure. But here's the thing. It's not my core strength. And Mike Henry Sr., it is his core strength. So I said, I've got a guy for you, and he's going to be perfect. It's the follower of one is the ministry, and he teaches people how to go on a mission trip to their very own workplace. And he thanked me effusively. I did an email to connect the two of them, and win-win.
Win-win-win, absolutely.
Win-win-win.
Yeah.
In that case, yeah. Because I could have, but I wasn't the best. So I was more than happy to bless my brother.
And that's another characteristic that I love about relating it back to Jesus, because he knew where his security lied. I mean, he was God, but when he was on earth, right, he still knew where his security lied, right, with the Father.
Yeah. And
so he was able to completely make the best choice for the person in front of him because he knew where his security lied.
And so that's why under character, I talk about identity. If we don't know who we are and whose we are, it's very difficult to be anything to anybody else. So that's foundational.
Yep. And while you were talking, I found where I was looking.
Very good.
So the 4 key points that you mentioned are to building relationships, that prospects are everywhere, not just in obvious places. Number 2 is establishing trust begins with empathy and engagement. 3 is examples and stories are essential to the discussion. And 4 is you must believe in the transformative power of your solution. So do me a favor and expound a little bit on that and give some sales tips and strategies to the people that are watching based around those things.
Boy, there's a lot in each one of those. So
or just pick the one that you like most, because technically we only have 25 minutes left.
All right. So,
and I want to leave some time for questions and answers.
I'm going to do my best to address each one because they're all important. So prospects are everywhere. We tend to get myopic about where we need to look for clients. By that, I mean, when we're at work, we're doing certain things that we know will put us in touch with our ideal prospects. And then when we go to the grocery store, or we go to church, or we are at a social gathering, we don't typically think about looking for people that could buy from us. So what I'm saying there is to always be open to the fact that God can be putting someone in your path regardless of where you are. And yes, we need to do the behaviors to generate leads. And it's critical to trust the Lord for the results. Critical to believe that He is going to guide our steps, which means we have to be checking in with Him. Of course, all of this is predicated on seeking Him. Seek first the kingdom of God, and all these things shall be added. So when we go to Him and say, Lord, where should I be prospecting? Lord, should I be changing the way I portray what it is that I do? Lord, who is the audience you want me to reach? It's important for us to check in with Him, because when we get our marching orders from Him, then we know that we're going to be successful. Showing empathy, I talked about already with the way we respond. So it's not being so quick to ask your next question, but rather take a moment, express how you're feeling or connect in some way, rephrase, paraphrase what you're hearing, synthesize it. And that will help the other person feel that you care about them. And bottom line, everybody wants to be cared for. Everybody wants to be understood. So those empathy statements are critical for conveying, I care about you. Putting other people first also helps with that. Stories. Stories, Jesus used parables. People can relate to stories. Now, I have learned, being part of the John Maxwell team and studying how he tells stories, he is masterful. It's not easy to tell a concise story that has a point that is going to speak to the prospect. So as you're thinking about how do you describe, how do you convey to a total stranger what it is you do, but instead of from the perspective of, I do this, I do that, I do the other, it's from your customer's perspective. Well, when I first started working with Sally, she was in this situation. And I just say Sally, I don't say her last name, I don't say the company, okay? Confidentiality. She was dealing with X, Y, and Z. And when we first talked, she first thought she wanted this, but we discovered together that this is what was really going to help her. So she went through her own process to figure out what to do next, and she ended up with this package. We worked together, and this is the end result that she got. That's the kind of client story that we all need to be able to tell. because then the individual who hasn't bought from us yet can relate, can hear themselves in the other person's shoes, and then they empathize and understand better what they can expect to gain if they do engage you, if they do buy your product, your service. So those are the kinds of stories that we all need to be working on. I need to get better at it too. It doesn't come naturally because we have to think from the other person's perspective. So we can spur each other on, ladies, to create those stories. And then believing in your product, you have to believe in the transformative power of what you bring to the marketplace. If you don't believe in what you're selling, no one else will. If you have hesitancy or you doubt the value, if you feel like you're charging too much, all of that, that's spirit, that is spiritual. It's a component that is of the sale that's operating at the spiritual level, and it will undermine and destroy because those thoughts are from the enemy. So one of the biggest challenges that I've seen salespeople in general, business owners who sell, have to come to grips with is, I'm just going to put it this way, head trash around money. We all have a money ceiling if we're in sales. And that ceiling is, I'm worth X amount of income. Now, you may not think about it consciously, but me just verbalizing it now, you might start thinking about it. What is my money ceiling? How much do I think I'm worth? How much is it okay to earn? And we don't have time to go into all this, but I'm just going to say, there's a lot of false teaching about poverty is next to godliness. And we're all supposed to operate in poverty, and that makes us godly. No. God is the maker of wealth, the creator of wealth, the sustainer of wealth, and he wants us to participate in that. So we need to have a right mindset about money before we can really fully believe in what we're selling. And then we have to charge a price that we can live with. So it's interesting. I've worked with some coaches who are new to coaching, and they don't feel like they have a whole lot of experience, and maybe they don't even have credentials, alphabet soup at the end of their name. So they don't feel like they can charge too much. So we talk about, what do you think your services are worth? Because back to the definition, goods and services for an agreed upon compensation. So if I believe I'm a $50 an hour coach, that's what I'm going to charge because I can have confidence charging that. I believe my services are worth that. So I can do it with full 100% confidence. And as I gain experience, then I will have the confidence to give myself a raise and charge a higher dollar amount per hour. Does that all make sense?
It does. Thank you. I remember I was lovingly charged with increasing my prices a couple of years ago. And I remember, because she said to me, you're charging way too little. And I wasn't charging a little. Like, I was charging what the industry was charging. Mm-hmm. And I was like, all right, well, that's just all it is. And she said, no, you're worth far more than that. Mm-hmm. And it wasn't that I didn't want to charge. It was more from the perspective of, are they going to pay it? Because I know I'm worth $1 million. Like, I know what I do is transformative. You can't put a price tag on that. Yeah. What I do is priceless. Like, there's no dollar amount that the coaching environment happens. Yeah. And it was interesting. I adjusted my prices and I got a client like really quickly after that. And I was like, thank you, Lord. Like I had a whole new level of
Yes.
confidence at that new price. So
Yeah.
I totally get what you're doing. All right, listen, well, we have 15 minutes left. I have one more question.
Okay.
I just want you to briefly discuss follow-up systems or best ways to follow up, because most of the time people aren't ready to buy and you have to follow up with them. So if you'll just kind of wrap up with that, and then I want to open it up with questions, and then we're going to give away a book.
Okay. Yes, the follow-up is critical. And if you've ever looked at sales statistics, most salespeople follow up once and then stop. Most customers buy after the 5th follow-up. So just following up puts you in a much better position to make more sales because your competition isn't doing it. Systems. I highly recommend whatever customer relationship management tool you are comfortable with and works for you to help you with scheduling automation. So a CRM is going to let you make a task to do a phone call or an email follow-up on a specific date and time. So when you come in to your office, you open your CRM, you have a list of to-dos for that day, that some of which are going to be follow-ups. I happen to have a follow-up note on my calendar for tomorrow morning because I sent some books to some people, and now it's time for me to circle back and say, hey, did you get the book? Did you have it? You probably didn't have a chance to read it yet. That's okay. Just wanted to make sure you got it. Do you have any questions? Right? Because if I don't do that, I am going to miss opportunities. So use some kind of electronic reminder so you don't have to keep it in your head, because depending on what you're selling, you could have multiple follow-ups needed to be done every day. When I was selling advertising 25 years ago, I was making 30 to 40 calls a day. Some were outbound new and some were follow-up. I could not keep it in my head. I made notes. Call so-and-so to ask X. So it was a no-brainer. And it just jogged my memory as to what our conversation had been about. So let the technology help, and do not neglect follow-ups. And for me, ladies, if it's not on the calendar, it is not going to get done. Personal and business. You know, talking to my mom in the nursing home on Skype, it goes on my calendar first because it's a priority, because it's the only way I can see her these days. So schedule it, hold yourself to it. Don't just shove it into tomorrow. It's tempting sometimes. Do your best to do what you said you were going to do when you said you were going to do it, because that's integrity.
Thank you for that. I appreciate it.
Yep.
All right. Before I open it up for questions, Deb, you've got a program that you're offering, and I just want to give everybody an opportunity to learn a little bit about it. This is not a sales conversation. This is simply this is what's going on, and you're welcome to join us, because I'm involved and I attended the meeting last time and it was so good. So go ahead, Deb, tell everybody about it.
Yeah, so like everybody else, I've had to shift the way I do business, and I started doing online group sales coaching. So I'm offering 2 classes each month. One is on Monday at noon. It's the first Monday at noon and the third Friday at 4.
Which is tomorrow, by the way.
Tomorrow at 4, so you're invited to come. Everyone is allowed to attend 2 sessions free, so you can get a sense of what we do, how we do it, and try it out. See if it's something that you'd like to continue with. in which case we have membership programs for monthly, 3 months, 6 months, or a year.
So great. And where can they get information about that?
I think we ought to post a link to my splash page about that. Which
okay. Why don't I do this? In the Facebook post, the live post, I'll go ahead in the comments and I'll put it in the comments, or if Facebook lets me edit it, because they've been not allowing me to edit my stuff sometimes, we'll get it there for you so you guys can check it out. So tomorrow, 4 p.m. Eastern time.
4 p.m. Eastern, correct.
All right, so I want to open this up for questions. So go ahead and unmute yourself if you have a question for Deb.
Thank you, Deb. I'm from across the pond in the UK, so that seemed really good. Thank you. And I have to say my major takeaway, which was a sort of a real shock, was about the follow-up to books, because I'm an author as well as a publisher, and I've gaily sent out books over the last few months, about 100 of them. And I haven't followed up, and I don't even know why. I know I was thinking, oh, when I do a course on that, I'll contact these people. But yeah, that middle bit of just saying how you're getting on with it.
Exactly.
Yeah, I was suddenly like, oh yes, of course.
How do you pronounce your name? Is it Laddie?
Lady.
It is Lady.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
Lady, what did you write about?
It's my 9th book, but it's written about online networking.
Oh my goodness.
And being successful on it.
That's great. That's great.
It's the first one dedicated to that subject at the moment.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Well, I'm glad the tip was helpful. Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, really good.
Absolutely.
If there was one particular tip that you wanted to give us that we had to take away, what would it be?
That don't be afraid of letting people know your faith stance when Holy Spirit prompts you. The key that I have found, I've worked as a consultant through ProCell Learning Limited out of London. I've been working with ProCell since 2008 on a joint project with a large client here in the US. And sorry, I just lost my train of thought. Where was I headed? Help me, Lady.
You were just saying, be unafraid of talking about your faith when prompted by the Holy Spirit.
Thank you. So I have been in corporate offices here where I'm a consultant, so I can be axed at a moment's notice if somebody doesn't like what I say. And I've seen some of the consultants that have worked alongside me have that happen to them. So I've always been very diligent to seek the Lord. Every morning I say, Lord, use me the way you want to today. Open a door and I will walk through it. So I don't open the doors. I watch and I wait for the Lord to open the door. And then my part is to be brave and risk it. So one time I actually, because the group took me there, not because I put it out there, the group took me to the place that I ended up putting the Trinity on my flip chart. And a vice president walked by the room and asked me later, why did you have Father, Son, and Holy Spirit on the flip chart? And all I had to say was, the group, part of our group discussion, they started talking about their faith and it related to the topic. So it went up on the flip chart. Well, it turns out she's a woman of faith, deep, deep faith. So we connected at that point at a faith level as well as professional level. So we're always safe when we stay underneath the shadow of the Lord's wings, as in Psalm 91. And we only do and say what we see the Father doing and saying. So thank you for the question.
I've got 2 questions that were sent in from the registrations that I want to get to, but does anyone else have a question that's on Zoom before I move over to that? Okay, looks like we're good. So the 2 questions that came over are, what would you do to help people make faster decisions? And this is a group of questions from one person. What can you do when someone says, I need this, but emails 2 days later saying they don't want it? This person is the sole provider for her family, and she said that she really needs to get better at this.
So the first one was,
what would you do to help people make faster decisions?
The best way to help people make faster decisions is to have that qualifying conversation. If we're not getting enough information to help the other person, if we're not prompting them to share what's really important to them and why they're considering this purchase, then it's easy to put it off because there's no urgency. So if, go back to my television example, if it's just a TV for the sake of entertainment, to play movies, and we have 2 other TVs already, I'm not a real good prospect. I'm probably not going to buy quickly. So asking the question, gosh, you've got 3 TVs. So I'm sure just having 2 won't be a problem for you. And see what they say. Well, no, it really is a problem because, oh, okay. So when were you thinking that you wanted to replace this? Because when is one of those qualifying questions. Again, in a vacuum, it's not going to be as meaningful, but I think you get the idea. People often won't make the decision because we haven't taken enough time to fully qualify them.
And so is that the same answer for the second piece, which talks about somebody saying they need this, but then 2 days later saying they don't?
That sounds like a qualifying issue. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the other question that was submitted is that this person is an introverted leader. They really like someone else doing the sales. How do you handle that?
So the real question is, can they afford to hire a salesperson? And do they know enough about how to effectively sell their own product or service? I'm assuming they're the owner or the leader. Do they know enough to be able to teach a hired person to do the sales? My experience has been that the owners who hate sales so much that they never want to learn about it, they never want to touch it, they struggle to be able to hire anyone who can do it to their standards because they aren't clear. And then the person they bring on comes with a resume of promises, and very quickly those promises aren't met. And the owner gets discouraged. And what happens is maybe the second time they've gone through this rat race, then they show up on my doorstep and say, I really don't want to do this, but I think I need to. And I usually agree with them and help them overcome the stigma of the ugly salesperson. That's really what keeps people from doing it. If they can see that there's a godly way to have a conversation around needs, wants, and desires, where there's no manipulation. That's the bottom line. Jesus never manipulated anyone. Manipulation is the same as witchcraft. We don't want any parts of it. It's pushing, it's pressure, it's ungodly, no matter how you slice it. So there can be no hint of pressuring or manipulating, or the person will sense it and it will turn them off. Jada.
And I found in my own experience that when I'm just authentically sharing, it's so much easier because I'm not pushy. I'm just sharing, and that's sales. It's just sharing.
Absolutely. Jada?
Thank you, Deb, so much. Actually, that was my question. So I really appreciate that. It's finding the fine line, but I think you gave confirmation to what I was already doing, just kind of in a situation now with a new project that I'm working on. And it's dealing with different nationalities as well, because my business is quite global.
Okay.
One of the things that I'm just saying this for a thank you for confirming today is that two of the clients did say, you know, I've been approached before about what I came to them about on much larger scales and with much bigger companies, but they were saying your authenticity and your honesty made all the difference. And I mean, these are companies, you know, of course, that would have greater budgets than I had. It would have been easier. Yeah. It looked good on the outside. And one of the things that I found too is that I began to ask the individuals really how they were doing individually, because it made a difference if we were going to partner. Because a lot of times people want to work with the person, but I really asked them, I said, what are some dynamics in your life, if you don't mind sharing with me, that may be a hindrance for this being a good partnership? And they actually were very appreciative of that. So I thank you for what you shared today, because it just was that aha, like, okay, I'm on the right track. It's okay. Because I'm that leader that leads from the bottom or the back and pushes everybody else. I don't necessarily. So when I'm having to do that, then ask for a fee, and then it gets a little, it's like, ah! So thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you for being here.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Kris, as well.
Oh, you're very welcome. All right. So the last question is, I think it's just a general question that I have. I'd love to hear your take, Deb, on how you respond in a godly way to a prospect who has asked all of us wonderful business owners to lower our prices. How you do that?
I appreciate that you want me to lower my price. I do. I know times are hard, and I don't blame you for asking. So please don't get upset with me when I tell you I'm not able to do that. And here's why. Because if I did it for you the way I operate, I would have to do it for everyone. So what I've done is give my most fair price and hope that it's agreeable. But the choice is yours.
That's so simple.
I say it with gratitude. See, you have to have the right mindset. I am grateful that they verbalized it. I also know that the marketplace has taught us all, if you don't ask, you're not going to get. So because we've all been taught that, we all ask. Do we really expect people? Now, there is a small percentage. They're called players who must negotiate everything. They will never pay top dollar, never ever. And if you don't give them something, they're going to walk away, because that's what they do. So be prepared to offer something that doesn't cost, that isn't a reduction of your price. So you can decide what that is. It might be an extra half hour of your time. It might be they can invite two for the price of one to a certain event. But on the things that you know you shouldn't compromise on, do not compromise. or you have undermined yourself. We can't get mad at someone for doing something, asking for something that we didn't tell them they couldn't do. So if we didn't start the conversation by saying, now, you're not allowed to ask me to lower my price, which nobody's ever going to do, right? So I can't get mad at somebody for doing what comes naturally. I say, you know what? In your shoes, I'd probably do the same. I just hope that you'll understand when I say I'm not going to be able to do that. And here's why. I don't stop at, I'm not going to be able to do that. It's adversarial. I explain my thought process. I volunteer it. I don't make them ask for it. I'll explain why. Because blah, blah, blah. So the choice is yours.
Well, thank you for that. And thank you so much for your time. It's about 4:05, so I want to wrap up. Deb, you said you're going to give away a book to somebody that's here. And we've got 2 people left. So you've got 2. Everybody else had to go at 4 o'clock. So
I would be happy to send a book to both of you, lady, because you are over the pond. How's an electronic copy?
I would really love a signed copy, paperback, but I'm happy to pay the postage if that would help.
Do you know what the postage might be?
I know from our end it can be something like, it can be even as high as $27. It's really silly.
That's crazy. Well, we'll figure it out. Here's what I would ask you to do. Jada, would you like a copy?
Oh, my pleasure.
Okay.
I receive it. Thank you. You can send it flat. You can send it flat rate priority. There's an international shipping that has just a flat rate.
Oh, is that?
Because I used to live in the UK and I used to send my friends stuff. I just sent a letter like the other day to my mom, so it's okay. So cheers. It won't break the bank. It won't break the bank. So there is a flat rate, and she'll get it like in about 7 days or so. But with the holiday, it's a little.
Thank you, Jada.
Yeah.
Why don't the both of you reply back to the email that I sent with the Zoom link, because Deb's on that. Just reply back all, and then that way Deb and I will both get the addresses and stuff, and Deb can just go ahead and get those out to you one way or the other. And then lady, Deb will check into the flat rate and she'll get back to you about how she'll get it to you.
All right then. Yeah, that sounds good.
Excellent.
Sounds good.
So I'll look forward to getting your contact info.
Thank you. And we'll look forward to getting that book. Wow. It's going to be amazing.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much.
I appreciate you being here today. Very nice to meet you.
Right.
All right, everybody. Well, thank you so much. I'm going to go ahead and stop the Facebook Live in just a second. But for everybody that's watching the replay and everybody who was here, thank you so very much for showing up. And just remember to sell like Jesus, because Jesus is amazing. And if you do anything his way, you generally succeed.
Yeah. Amen.
Thank you,
and I'll
ladies.
go ahead and get with Deb. We'll get that link up at the group program. We'll put that in the comments on Facebook. And then just sign up to participate. Remember, you can come twice for free. So check it out. Tomorrow's the first one, and then the next one will be in January. So, all right, guys, take care, everybody. Thanks again.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.